All right, I'm going to kind of rapid fire this a little bit. So we have here one of the things I did was I went to a video game bar in Vegas, and that was called Player One. Shout outs to them. It was actually way nicer than I expected. I mean, a lot of good reviews and such, but it's a bar. You have a cover fee, or at least when we went there, and we went on Wednesday, which was apparently Wednesdays are weeb nights. Which apparently a lot of vendors for anime stuff are there selling their wares, and you get to cosplay and stuff like that. So it was a colorful crowd there. It was fun. They have anime and stuff playing up on those big screens, and they have arcade machines and like even just nice comfy chairs and TVs so you can sit down and play consoles stuff. So some of the stuff we played were I got around. They had an old Punch Out arcade machine. I actually love the original Mike Tyson's Punch Out, and for the NES.
It's supposed to be like amazing, right?
Yeah, the NES one's great. It was really neat to see because that's like you can joke it's Shadow of the Colossus, tiny man versus big giants. Now essentially it's the arcade game. I've played it before, but it was forever ago. And you're a standard, you're 1-to-1 size, correct? But in order to see your opponent, because you're so big, you're just a wire frame. So it's like the old VR look. It's scan lines or something like that. So you have a wire outside and grid lines. The response is really slow. I didn't realize how slow it was. So it was really hard for me to adapt just for the timing. So I got my ass handed to me.
Yeah.
It's like, man. And then my buddy, who's also really good at it, he's like, yeah, kind of like step aside, let me do it. I'm like, all right, fine, man. And he got his ass handed to him. I'm like, fucking told you, dude. It wasn't just me. It wasn't, there's something off about the timing that, once you dial it in, then you're like, okay, but we're so used to the Nintendo responsiveness, and we've played that forever.
So was this on an actual Nintendo, or was this emulated?
This was a legit arcade. No, this is the original arcade machine.
Whoa, okay, never mind.
They had a lot of stand-up actual arcade machines there.
Okay.
So that's we got with that we got to play the old Rival Schools. I don't know if you ever got a chance to play this.
Sorry, just real quick. So real quick story. So when Dan Reichert was when he was on Giant Bomb, there was a point at which he tried to go and beat Mike Tyson because he'd never done that as a kid, and he was like trying really hard, and he was trying to like do it emulated or something like that, and it was like impossible. And he was talking about it on the podcast that he had to, like, he was gonna like start investing money, and he was really debating about it, whether or not he was actually going to invest money into getting a CRT and stuff like that, because it's such a pinpoint thing to be able to actually beat Mike Tyson in that game, that you have to go back to the way it was actually played, because if you play it digitally or something like that, it screws it up. Anyway, I just thought that was interesting. But go ahead and go on with that.
Oh no, that's fine. I remember him talking about. I thought he actually was able to beat it consistently, because I thought there was a bar in their area where if you play, they let you play it, and if you can play and beat it, you get like a free bottle of champagne or something like that. He did it a couple times, I thought.
Maybe later, but I could have sworn that, because he was like on there going like, I've got it in my mind now. I have to go back and beat Mike Tyson. Like, I never beat him before. I've got to do it. But maybe I'm remembering wrong. But anyway,
you were a fan longer before I was, so I'll trust you on that. But no, so one of the other games I played was, like I said, Rival Schools. It was it's a fighting game, early 3D modeling, and it's like loosely it was Catcom, so it was like loosely connected to Street Fighter, meaning that they had a character crossover, which was Sakura, the high school girl, and her sister is a character in there as well. And it's essentially about a bunch of high schools duking it out to see who the top dogs are in the area. And I remember having it on the PlayStation, and it being a fun game. But I remember also there was it was one of those things that like you hear going around the circuit. It might have just been because it was a low print, but also in the games you can find anywhere. And so I remember being a kid being like, the rumor was they got pulled off the shelves because of school violence. promoting high school violence against each other, and that was,
yeah,
of course, post Columbine. Probably, I'm trying to remember. It was roughly around the right time, and so like, oh yeah, that's totally believable. So it could have been someone just made it up, and or used that maybe thought that was an excuse, and that was just taken as fact back then because you had no way to fact check that.
yeah.
Um,
Back in the
so it
day,
was just like, oh yeah, in reality it was probably just a limited run, and it wasn't selling, because they weren't selling a whole lot anyways. But yeah, that played that, had a good time with it, and then they had the old Virtual Cop. Um, didn't know if you ever, yeah, it's like
I
that
remember
one.
Virtual Cop. Yeah,
I remember renting the Sega Saturn from a Blockbuster, and you had to give like $100 down, like safety deposit,
yeah,
and it was still really expensive. And then we rent the game and get the light guns, and I played that one to high heaven. So, because this, yeah, played through the entire thing of that, and it just brought back. That was really nostalgic for me.
dude,
You
Virtual
know,
Cop. I remember seeing that. I think it was Virtual Cop, where it was like, as a kid seeing that and just being like that is the future. Like I just like your brain couldn't even handle it going from 2D stuff to that. Even though it still looks okay now, but it doesn't look as good as it did back then when it was fresh. It's crazy.
Well, I mean, that kind of 3D modeling, even though it's blocky and it looks ugly, that was the cyber future that you were always promised, because
Cyber.
you'd go, because but back then the closest thing you had was like lethal enforcers, or
Yeah.
like Mad Dog McGraw or something like that, where it was the Area 51, where you have real photos of people coming up and shooting at you, and then it's like, and then you got them down, but it's all 2D pop-ups. And then you had this, which was, when you shot, the enemies would react to where you shot them. So if you shot them in the shoulder, they'd jerk back properly. And yeah, it had also kind of led the way for the future of was it uh not Time Splitters, but Time Crisis. Time Crisis, because when like the enemies were about to shoot, a circle comes down, and then it lets you know that it's like it goes from like green to yellow to red, and that's when they're about to shoot you. So you have the extra warning, but also it amps it up a little bit, like I gotta gun him down before he hits me. um so that was always, like I said, that game was a lot of fun. We went through, they have a easy, medium, and hard, and different different stages. And so we just sat there, stood there and played the entire thing. So good times. And then one game that I didn't actually know existed, and I was super happy we played, was Dynamite Cop. uh so Dynamite Cop is the US sequel to what was the Die Hard arcade game. I forget what, I don't know what the actual Japanese was, but what they did is the original game came out, and either they had it officially licensed, or they just reskinned it when they brought it to America for Die Hard. And essentially, it's just a beat 'em up game. So it's a 2-player 3D modeling beat 'em up, and you're running around. It had when it was the first one was brought to the U.S. Like I said, you're going in a big, they kind of do the Nakatomi Plaza, but the enemy is completely different. The motivation is completely different. But yeah, you're wife beater wearing John McClane, and female sidekick, just whoever that is. You're like, okay, you need a player too, and we're just going to make it a woman. And it's like this is a direct sequel where you could pick between one of 3 people, and yeah, it's more of the same gameplay. It's the same bad guy. Uh, didn't really catch the motivations behind it, but instead of being in a building, it's on a yacht, and you're running through, and as you're playing, getting from one stage to the next. The idea is sometimes they'll throw quick time events, and that was really unique for the arcade game. So it's like it'll just, as you show your model running, and it'll like hit kick. So if you press kick and you succeed, your guy would do like a jump kick and knock the other dude out, and that just means you get to skip that encounter, or like hit jump, and then you'll like slide underneath the door or something like that. It was silly stuff, but quick time events were a brand new thing back then. And so I was like, "Oh, dude, that's really neat." It's like you haven't really seen that in an arcade game before. Um, yeah. So this is it's a really cheesy like bad guy and like setup, but it was a fun game. So I like I said, never knew it existed. I didn't know there's a sequel to the Die Hard game. So yeah, that was the arcade games that I pretty much played, and then